Alright guys, Karina has confirmed the next SP character to be SP Nishinoya, and as usual, every time when a new character is announced, I'll be doing a quick review of all of his skills and whether or not you should be summoning for him. Now for SP Nishinoya, I will still go through all of his skills, just for completeness. However, the decision for whether or not you should be summoning for him, hopefully is already going to be very obvious to vast majority of players. And that is going to be because they're in this game, there are only two high rarity liberal characters, which is going to be Komori and SP Nishinoya, and you should have already made the decision on which one you want to summon for. And Komori's banner was like 2 months ago, so 2 months back, you guys probably already made that decision on which one you want to go for. So now it's just basically the other half of the banner where you decide whether or not you want to summon for Nishinoya because that's a liberal you want to use long term, or whether or not you're going to skip him because you have already went for Komori, okay? And also for the newer players, Komori's rerun banner should be in about 2.5 months or 3 months time. So depending on how much resources you want, you actually have and also want to save, that can also be a viable solution even if you don't have Komori right now, because he will be getting a rerun in just 2 or 3 months time, okay? Now in terms of how to decide which one you want between SP Nishinoya and also Komori, is very much based on the type of team you want to build. I have already done a very in-depth guide comparing the two characters, okay? I'll link that in the comment section, so for those of you guys who are still trying to make up your mind on which liberal you want, you guys can check out that video in order to confirm which one is the one you really want to go after, okay? Now let's just go through his skills and also skill resonance as well as his deployment bond, just to, so everyone have a clear understanding in terms of what this character is capable of. His skill 1, he's able to increase reflex and also, one other thing I forgot. Basically, Nishinoya is one of those characters that did get a buff on the JP version. Now, another character who also got a buff was Yu Kageyama, and he went straight onto global after all of those buffs have already been implemented. So my expectation is that SP Nishinoya would already come to global with all of those buffs included as well, okay? So whenever you see any comments here which says after buff, just assume that will be the way on global. Okay, so skill 1, basically he will be able to increase his reflex and also receive. And furthermore, when any enemy make a critical play, so basically critical action, you are also able to further increase your reflex. Can be stacked up to 10 times and lasts for 6 net crossing. Vast majority of time, assuming the enemy is actually critting vast majority of their actions, you can actually max stack this. That's because for every 2 net crossing, there are normally 4 actions performed, okay? So there's a receive, set, spike, block, okay? So basically within 6 net crossing, there are basically 12 opportunities for the enemy to make some crit. And because the meta is definitely, like a lot of the stronger meta characters are all very much crit focused, it should be actually fairly easy for the enemy to actually trigger crit, and therefore vast majority of the time I do actually assume Nishinoya, maybe not max stack it, but should be easily be able to get at least 8 stacks upwards, okay? That's going to be my expectation. This will be even easier if you do actually happen to have his skill resonance, which I'll talk about in a bit, okay? Skill 2, this is a setting skill. You are able to increase the awareness by 100% of reflex. Normally you can get Nishinoya to about, I would say at least 90% reflex fairly easily. So if you do actually happen to set, you should be getting roughly around 90% awareness. This also is able to actually reduce the cooldown for your teammate's setting ability as well, okay? So this is actually quite a nice set because of this mechanic. The only thing is that you probably wouldn't actually expect SP Nishinoya to set all the time, because SP Nishinoya will tend to use his receive a lot, and obviously you can't touch the ball consecutively. So if you have already ended up receiving, you 100% wouldn't then be able to actually do the set, okay? So even though this is a very, very nice skill on paper, you probably wouldn't actually be triggering much in a game, okay? Skill 3, you are able to increase your spirit, which is basically crit damage for receive, and also when your teammate make a critical play, you are able to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate attack. Also, for every ult after the first one in that rally, you are able to increase your crit damage, and this can actually stack up to twice as well. So if you actually add up everything here, this is almost like a 200% buff into crit damage, assuming you have actually ult twice already. Now, this might sound strange to some people, which is that Are you actually really expecting Nishinoya to like ult twice or three times in the same match? The answer is yes, because he is actually able to reduce the cooldown himself. Now, this may not be that consistent at zero dupe. However, if you do actually get him to skill resonance 2, yes, you would actually be expecting Nishinoya to almost spam every single receive, okay? But once again, I'll talk about that during the skill resonance section. And then skill 4, this is quite straightforward. Just perform a very strong receive. There's a very high multiplier, as you can see. You're also able to increase your reflex and receive further. So he's just going to gig above himself, okay? Especially on the reflex set. Now, if you are wondering how did I come out to that, reflex of around 90% after you built it, basically, if you just add up everything here, there's a base 10% here. Assuming you can actually max stack this is another 20% because they're 10 stack. So that's already 30 by itself. And add on another 20 here, which is 50. Add on the main slot for your potential on slot 4. Main stat, that's another 20, so that together is already 70. Add on the base for Nishinoya, which is another 5%, that's 75%. Add on the 2-set reflex potential, that's another 7.5. That together is already 82.5, okay? And it's going to be fairly easy for you to find some other substats on your potential to make up the last, 7.5 or so. So I normally get gonna assume Nishinoya would be normally floating around at least 90% reflex, and if you're actually lucky with your substats and tend to have a lot of the reflex one, you can easily get him to over 100% reflex as well. Okay, so whenever he does crit, it will definitely be a whenever he does receive, it will be a crit, and therefore he then can take advantage of, like, let's say the 200% massive crit damage in terms of his spirit stats as well. So that's kind of why Nishinoya, in terms of like an actual receive, is extremely strong, and also he can actually spam that. Now, how can he spam that? That is going to be down to his skill resonance too, okay? So before, yes, you are gonna have ways to actually reduce your cooldown. However, because of your natural net crossing, it's normally 8 net crossing, you normally wouldn't be able to do your receive back to back, okay? So that's going to be a problem. However, once you actually get to skill resonance 2, that all changes. Because first of all, your food received, so basically all cooldown is going to reduce down to just 5 net crossing. So that's already going to be a massive reduction. But furthermore, all of the trigger condition you have seen before, which is basically relying on, let's say, the enemy making a crit play for his skill 1, this is now going to be expanded to include both your side and also the enemy side. And same thing for skill 3, this one for reducing cooldown. Previously, this was only when your own teammate make a crit. Now this is also going to be expanded, so that is also going to be your own teammate or the enemy making a crit. And now if you think about it, between your two receive, they're normally going to be 8 actions, okay? Because each side is going to have 4 actions. Each side is going to have a receive, set, spike, and also block. So therefore, between your two receive, there are actually going to be 8 actions which happen in the middle. If your net crossing is already down to only 5 net crossing, as long as 3 out of those 8 actions tend to be crit, then you are then able to reduce your cooldown down to just 2 net crossing, which essentially means that you'll be able to receive with your ultimate again as soon as the ball come back to your side, okay? And to be honest, getting just 3 crit out of 8 actions, that's actually really easy to achieve with how a lot of the meta characters are very much crit dominated. And also remember, out of those 8 actions, 4 of them are on your side. So you can even control that by building a team which is very crit heavy, okay? So if you do actually happen to have SP Nishinoya as skill resonance 2, he is likely going to be spamming his ultimate receive every single time. And that's also going to be another reason why you wouldn't tend to see him actually doing the setting, because he will be doing the receiving instead, okay? So that's going to be skill resonance 2, which, as you can see, very important. Then move on to skill resonance 4. This is also really strong. First of all, you're able to increase reflex for your whole team. Now, this is very similar to what Komori is also able to do at skill resonance 4, but even better, because for Komori, only able to buff up the back row's reflex. Nishinoya is actually able to buff out the front row, so that includes your blocker as well. And once again, high chance of your blockers critting, also give a lot more consistency to Nishinoya actually able to spam his ultimate, okay? When he receives a power attack, you're also able to further increase your receive, which is also nice, because a lot of the teams tend to be power focused, especially right now in the meta. And the last part is also very important, which is that when his receive is not bad, the spiker who is going to then spike is actually going to have his cooldown reduction by 2 net crossing as well, okay? A cooldown reduction is always one of the most important different game mechanics in this game. So the fact that he's also able to do that, and the condition is not even that hard, to be honest. It's just a receive is not bad, and if he's actually going to be the one spamming every single receive, this is actually quite easy for you to trigger as well. Okay, so it's almost like I don't know, a 2-turn cooldown for all of your spikes on your whole team, which is going to be massive. It's very crazy, and that's kind of what skill resonance for. It's also going to be one very strong dupe for Nishinoya as well. Okay. Now, obviously, if you, well, number one, you have to make up your decision on whether or not you want to go for Komri or SP Nishinoya. But for those of you guys who are planning to get SP Nishinoya, I am going to strongly recommend you guys to go for at least 200 times on this banner to get that one free dupe at 200 summons, and that can bring your Nishinoya to skill resonance 2. This is going to be an absolute game changer because it actually allows him to spam his ultimate. So highly recommend you guys to do that first. And if you guys do have the resources, I am actually going to also recommend skill resonance 4. Maybe not this time straight away because that can be quite tough for vast majority of players, but maybe more plan for the future, doing the rerun banner, also try to get SP Nishinoya to skill resonance 4 as well, okay? Okay, so that's going to be all of the skill resonance. Lastly, it's going to be a deployment bomb. Both of the deployment bombs are not that necessary for, at least from Nishinoya's perspective, okay? The one with Sugar Warrior basically increases reflex, but I already said earlier, you can get him normally to like 90% reflex, maybe even 100 if you have nice substat, so extra reflex is not really needed. Then this bond with Kageyama, once again, on Nishinoya side, it's just extra reflex, which is not really needed. A tiny bit of receive, but once again, if you just think about how much extra, like his base multiplier, and also how much buff he is able to get already. For example, when the enemy actually do a power attack, he can already get an extra 50, etc. So to be honest, extra receive is not even that important either. Now, this is still going to be one very good bond, but it's more from Kageyama's perspective. If you're going to play SP Kageyama, especially with SP Hinata as well, I do actually think this is going to be absolutely essential for that team to work. However, it's not like there is a very one-sided relationship in my opinion. It's like if you're going to play Kageyama, you need Nishinoya. However, if you have Nishinoya, you don't have to bring Kageyama. Okay,